Hi, this is Mark Taylor-Canfield, and this is MTC's Classic Radio Archive, where we present some of the best vintage radio plays from the 20th century and beyond. I wanted to let you know why I got involved with this and why I'm so interested in vintage radio programs. Well, I blame my grandfather, Charles Jacobs, and my father, Floyd Canfield. Now, Charles was a great adventurer. He traveled around the country, was a jockey for a while, and then a racehorse owner. And my father would travel with him. So they would go to Chicago, and race horses, California, also up in Canada. And along the way, they were listening to radio programs like The Shadow. Only the Shadow knows. And my father used to talk about that, and so did my grandfather. Then my grandfather, Charles, gave me his old Stetson fedora, and I changed the way that I started to dress. I started listening to these old radio plays, watching old film noir movies, The Falcon, Dick Tracy, Boston Blackie. And I realized that these were radio plays that were transcribed to the film theater. Some of the best of this genre were detective stories. From the 1930s through the 1960s, a lot of the best programs were written by, or at least adapted from, some of the best detective writers at the time, including Dashiell Hammett, Raymond Chandler, Mickey Spillane. Each author had their own city as a backdrop to their detective stories. Mickey Spillane had New York, of course, and then Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett had San Francisco and Los Angeles. Well, there was nobody in Seattle that I know of, so I've created my own series called Nick Savage Private Eye, which you can check out at this YouTube channel. Where I play the lead role as the detective. So that's how involved I've become. Now I create these kinds of radio plays, and I'm very involved in the production. So I understand what it's like to layer field recordings on top of voiceovers by actors and adding sound effects, and it's just an amazingly creative process, and it's so much fun working with other people on it. But you definitely have to have great actors, great writers and great actors. That's what makes it work in the world of radio theater. That's where we got radio detectives like Philip Marlowe, Mike Hammer, Sam Spade, and then, later, Johnny Dollar, which is one of my favorite private eyes. All of these people played hard-nosed private detectives, Seamuses, Gonshoes. The detective stories were center stage on the radio at that time. And for my money, one of the best of the detective series was Johnny Dollar. The lead role was played by a plethora of actors, including John Lund, Edmund O'Brien, Mandel Kramer, who's one of my favorite, but the very best of the best, I think, was Bob Bailey. And I think a lot of the fans of the program would agree with me on that. Bob Bailey had such a relaxed and suave sort of manner, the perfect attitude for a person whose job brought him into danger many times, but who never seemed to sweat it. And the soundscapes, the Foley artists, the sound effects were very realistic and brought sort of a film noir quality to the radio program. But the real genius behind the program was a man named Jack Johnstone, who often pulled double duty, and not only did he write the episodes, but he also directed them. And he even played his own brother in a couple of the episodes, which was sort of an inside joke. So he was also great at bringing his vast geographical knowledge of the world into the plays as settings for these stories. He made settings part of one of the characters in the play, which is always what great film or radio does, right? Radio plays. He also wrote some amazing roles for some of the best character actors at the time, including the ever-present Virginia Gregg, who was in so many old radio plays, and also ended up in the Dragnet series on television, and was still doing radio theater in the late 70s with the CBS Mystery Theater during that revival era. So, she's one of the hardest working character actors in the history of show business, and especially, radio theater. But she went beyond radio theater and ended up doing visual acting as well. Today on MTC's Classic Radio Archive, we are presenting for your listening enjoyment and your edification one of my favorite Johnny Dollar episodes with Bob Bailey in the title role. It's called The Harried Heiress Matter, and we've been able to get a very clean copy of this audio recording for you, which I'm particularly delighted about. And so here it is. I hope you enjoy the show, and afterwards I'll jump back in and make a few more comments about the history of radio theater and why it's so important and why it's part of this educational mission that we're on here at MTC's Classic Radio Archive channel. Thanks for listening.
Johnny Dollar.
This is Bert Larkin, International Casualty in Life.
Oh, hiya, Bert. How are you?
I'm afraid I have a bit of a problem, Dollar.
Yeah?
Yes, involving some $300,000.
Wow.
Will have to be distributed very shortly.
Oh, well, easy. Bert, just send me a check. Forget the whole thing.
You're testing, of course.
Oh, well, now, how could you say a thing like that? Well, what about this 300 G's? You expecting a policyholder to kick the bucket?
Exactly. Oh, though I wouldn't put it so crudely.
Oh, well, maybe expecting him to be knocked off, huh?
Oh, no. His name is Mr. William Makepeace Everly.
Yeah?
He lives out in the old Piney Wood section.
Oh, yeah, that's a pretty well-to-do part of town.
Exactly. And Mr. Everly is quite wealthy.
Well, he'd have to have something to carry that big a policy.
Exactly. I've just learned from his doctor, Dr. Thatcher, that he has only a very short time to live.
Well, just what am I supposed to do about it?
I don't know.
You don't know?
All I know is that Mr. Everly wants you out to see him immediately. And beyond that,
Hey, Bert, there's something funny about this.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Dollar. But will you do it right away?
Sure, why not? But I wonder.
CBS Radio brings you Bob Bailey in the exciting adventures of the man with the action-packed expense account, America's fabulous freelance insurance investigator.
Yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Get the really light refreshment. This is where I talk, Kay. Get the really light refreshment. That's Pepsi-Cola, of course.
I just wanted to say be sociable, Charlie.
Of course, Kay. Be sociable. Have a Pepsi on the road or at home. It always refreshes without filling.
Charlie.
Pick up extra cartons now. Pepsi is so delicious it goes fast. That's why you should keep plenty of Pepsi on hand.
Oops. Maybe I'd better sing.
Be sure to say keep Pepsi handy.
Yes, Charlie. But the song says it sociably. Be sociable. Look smart. Keep up to date with Pepsi. Drink light, refreshing Pepsi. Stay young and debonair. Be sociable. Have a Pepsi.
What Kay means is, get plenty of Pepsi next time you shop.
Well, yes.
And now, Act One of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Expense account submitted by Special Investigator Johnny Dollar to the International Casualty and Life Insurance Company, Hartford, Connecticut. Following is an account of expenses incurred during my investigation of the Harried Heiress matter. Expense account item 1, $4.85 for a tank full of gas, and I drove to the Everly address at the edge of Piney Woods. That was a beautiful old place in a setting of tall oaks and sycamore trees that spread protectively over and around the rather large frame house, with its slate roof, its cupolas and dormers and broad porches. Even before going in, I knew the inside was filled with heavy, overstuffed furniture and velvet draperies, gilded mirrors, that it had a kind of musty smell, perhaps a trace of camphor, and the parlor closed off except for very special occasions. It was that kind of place. In answer to my knock, I was met at the door by a man who looked anything but on his last legs.
Mr. Dollar?
Yeah, that's right.
Good. Come in, please.
Thanks. But are you Mr.
I'm Dr. Thatcher. I'm the one who called your insurance company.
Oh, I see.
At Mr. Everly's request. Or I should say at his insistence. Come along, please. He's in his bedroom upstairs.
Yeah, sure.
I'm afraid he has only a few days to live, Mr. Dollar. Early yesterday, I notified his stepson, Alfred Harker, but I haven't been able to locate his niece, Nancy Everly. And that is what has him upset. That's why he wants to see you.
Oh?
They're his only living relatives, by the way.
Well, just what does he want me to do?
Well, suppose I let him tell you. Oh, and although he realizes he hasn't long to live, he has no idea how short his time really is.
All right.
Please bear that in mind when you talk to him.
Yes, sure.
And above all, try not to excite him. Now, in here, please.
Oh, okay, thanks.
Mr. Everly, I have brought Mr. Johnny Dollar.
Oh, isn't that nice? Well, sit down here beside my bed, Mr. Dollar. Let me tell you why I've sent for you.
Yes, certainly, sir.
Well, young Thatcher here doesn't really know what he's talking about, but he seems to think I have only a few months to live.
A few months?
Of course, I don't believe him. Mr. Dollar, I'll probably end up outliving both of you youngsters.
That's the spirit. Well, I hope you do, sir.
But he's given me something to think about. My estate.
What about it, sir?
I've willed everything to my niece, Nancy. And my insurance automatically goes to her in the will. Or did you tell him that, Thatcher?
I thought it better if you did.
Yes. Well, Dollar, it's not only because she's been kind and loving over the years, but, well, she's had gumption enough to stand on her own feet, rather than depend on me for a living.
Where is Nancy, Mr. Everly?
I don't know.
Well,
But I want you to find her, Mr. Dollar, and bring her here so that I can see her before I... Well, now, I still don't believe this young sawbones, but I...
Yes, I think I understand, sir. And she is your only heir, your only living relative?
I told you, Doctor.
My only heir. And I want to be sure. I want you to be sure it stays that way.
Well, I'll do everything I can.
I want nothing to go to my stepson, Alfred Harker.
I see.
Idle, worthless, sponging off me all these years, even forging my name to checks to get my money now and then.
That kind, huh?
Yes. And if he finds out I'm leaving everything to her, there isn't anything he wouldn't do to...
Please, take it easy, Mr. Everly.
I'm all right.
Well, of course, Nancy realizes this about Alfred, doesn't she?
No. And that's why you must find her. Bring her to me.
I'll certainly try, sir.
Yes, you must.
Please, Mr. Everly,
And
now
if
you...
anything happens to me, you must protect her from him. You must. You...
Dollar, quickly, hand me that hypo there on the tray.
Yeah, sure, Doc. Here you are.
I was afraid he might get too wrought up over this. Oh. There now. Just relax, Mr. Everly. Relax.
Yes. Thank you.
Well, now he'll sleep for a while. I was afraid he might get too excited.
Yeah. And it sure looks like I got my work cut out for me.
I'm afraid so.
At least this Alfred Harker doesn't know that his stepfather's money, his insurance...
I'm afraid he does, though.
What's that?
I didn't realize...
Realize what?
But when I called him and told him Mr. Everly was
You
dying...
told him Nancy is the only heir?
Yes, and I shouldn't have.
Have you any idea at all where I might start looking for Nancy?
No, Dollar, I'm afraid not.
But if you don't know and the old man doesn't know, how do I... Oh, great.
Have a real cigarette. Camel.
Have a Camel cigarette.
Have a real cigarette. Have a Camel. Have a Camel cigarette. Best tobacco makes the best smoke.
Have a Camel cigarette.
Best tobacco makes the best smoke. Have a Camel cigarette.
If you're smoking more these days, but enjoying it less, change to Camels. The Camel blend of caustic tobaccos has never been equaled for real smoking satisfaction. Have a real cigarette.
Have a Camel.
Start to really enjoy smoking again.
And now, Act Two of yours truly, Johnny Dollar.
Now, look here, Doctor. If nobody knows where Nancy Everly is or how to find out where
wait,
she
Dollar.
is... Yeah?
Mr. Everly's stepson, Alfred Harker, always kept close tabs on Nancy's
Oh,
whereabouts.
he would.
Well, what do you mean?
Sure, so that if anything happened to the old man, he could start sponging off of her. Now, look, it's
Yes?
important. Well, Mr. Everly said she doesn't know what a rotten character Al is.
That's true. Because of his sweetness and light attitude, Mr. Everly never told her.
Well, if he had, he wouldn't have to be so worried about what Alfred might try to do to her to get the estate.
Very true.
Unless I can get to Nancy first, she'll be a sitting duck for him.
If only I hadn't told Alfred he's not included in the
Well,
inheritance.
you didn't, that's that.
Yet, if Mr. Everly's will specifies that Nancy's to be the sole heir...
Oh, you never heard of a will being broken?
Well, yes.
Okay, where can I find Alfred?
Well, he lives in a rooming house on the other side of town. Yeah, I'll write the address down for you.
Yeah, do that.
And remember, Dollar, he's not only bad, but clever. So be careful. Here, remember that.
Sure.
You looking for that young Mr. Harker, mister?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, well, he ain't there. I'm the building super.
Now, where can I find him?
Don't ask me. All I know is he packed a couple of bags yesterday morning and left.
All right, look here. I'm a private investigator. My credentials.
Oh, say.
If you'll just let me get into Harker's apartment. Oh, here. Here, this 5-spot be of any use to you?
Oh, now, you know better than to ask that, young fella.
It was pretty obvious Al Harker had left in a hurry. The clothes he hadn't packed were strewn all over the place. But luck was with me. On a desk, I found an airline timetable. One of the flights to Los Angeles had a check mark beside it. More important, I found the address of Nancy Everly, an address in Philadelphia, PA. I drove to the airport and spent item 2, $12.55 on a plane to Philadelphia. Then item 3, $6.25 for a cab to Nancy's address. It was a neat little apartment in the section they call Upper Darby. But instead of finding Nancy there...
Why, no, Johnny Dollar. I'm Marianne Hooper.
Oh, yeah. Now, Miss Hooper...
But I know Nancy Everly from the office where we work together.
Well, where can I find her,
So
Miss Hooper?
when she moved out of town, I agreed to take over the lease on this nice apartment. Won't you come in?
She moved out of town, you say?
Mm-hmm.
Where?
Oh, she was transferred. She was a copywriter, you know.
For whom? The name of the company you work for?
Hardin, Carmen, and Fisher.
Oh, yeah, the ad agency.
Mm-hmm. And they sent Nancy out to their Los Angeles office just a few weeks ago.
Then Alfred must have found that out.
Why don't you come in just a minute, Johnny? It's awful chilly out
Hey,
here.
listen, do you have her address in L.A.?
Well, no, but maybe at the office.
All right, okay, thanks. Thanks very
Johnny,
much.
has she done something wrong?
No, she hasn't.
What?
It was late, and I hadn't had any dinner, but I took a cab out to International Airport. That's another $6.25, and there, unfortunately, had plenty of time to eat before I could take the 1:30 a.m. plane for the West Coast. The meal is item 5, $3 even. Item 6, $161.60 plane fare to L.A. Item 7, another $6.25 taxi into the office of Hardin, Carmen, and Fisher, where I had to wait for the joint to open up. Then I talked to the receptionist.
No, Mr. Dollar, Nancy isn't here.
Oh,
As
then
a
I'll
matter
go out
of
and
fact,
grab
she
some
won't
breakfast.
be in at all today.
When does she come in if you... What did you say?
I said she isn't coming in today.
Why not?
Well, I don't know.
Oh, then give me her address.
Yes, certainly. It's 1308 Pandora Avenue out in West Los Angeles.
Okay, thanks a lot. Nancy was in L.A. Al Harker had come to L.A., and Al knew he'd get none of Mr. Everly's estate unless... Unless what? Oh, I hadn't the least idea. But I knew that he was clever, which meant there was no time to waste in getting hold of Nancy. I'd have made $3.50 for a cab to 1308 Pandora, and there from the landlord... Oh, believe me, this was the one I hadn't anticipated.
Oh, she lives here, all right, but she isn't here now.
Do you have any
on
idea?
a little trip a few hours ago.
Trip, did you say?
That's right. She and a real nice-looking young man.
Do you know his name, who he is?
No, I can't say that I do, but a real charming, nice-looking
Well, look, do you know where they
young
went?
man. Oh, I sure do.
Well, where?
She said they were going over to Las Vegas.
Vegas?
And you know something? I think they're going over there to get married.
Ouch.
Munch, munch, munch a bunch of Fritos, corn chips. It's not polite to smack your lips, but you can't help it with Fritos, corn chips. Munch, munch, munch a bunch of Fritos, corn chips.
That's right, Fritos corn chips. So crisp and light, there's contentment in every munch. Serve them at outdoor parties, as a snack or with dips. Fritos corn chips are so good with cold drinks, everyone will want to munch a bunch. Fritos have a flavor no other kind of chip can match.
Munch, munch, munch a bunch of Fritos, corn chips.
Fritos are golden chips of corn just made to munch. Keep Fritos corn chips on hand for the perfect warm weather between meal treat. Tuck a bag in every lunch, picnic or otherwise. Serve them with sandwiches, salads, all summer meals. Fritos corn chips are full of good, crisp, refreshing flavor. Fritos, Fritos corn chips.
Munch, munch, munch a bunch of Fritos, corn chips.
Now, back to yours truly, Johnny Dollar, and the Harried Heiress matter.
Expense account item 9, 70 cents for a phone call to Las Vegas, Nevada, to that well-known license bureau.
Johnny Dollar, the special investigator?
Yeah, that's right. Listen.
Well, sir, this is a real privilege talking to you this way.
Hey, listen, there's a young couple on their way over there to get married.
Happens all the time, Johnny.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Especially here.
Yeah, now listen. Their names are Nancy Everly and Alfred Harker.
You want me to arrange something special for them to help them on their way?
No. Somehow you've got to keep them from getting married.
Well, now, unless you've got some legal reason, Johnny, some kind of court order or something.
By the time I went through that, they could be married and gone.
Yes, I guess that's
So
true.
look, you got to stall them. Somehow you got to keep that pair waiting.
Well, now, Johnny, I'd certainly like to do you the favor.
And do it.
But unless I got some legal cause. You see, it works like
Well,
this.
look, just you stall them off until I get there. I'll make it worth your while.
Now, Johnny, that sounds like bribery.
All right, call it anything you like. Just hold them up until I can get over there to Vegas.
But on what excuse, Johnny?
Anything you can think of, but do it. I'm on my way. Alfred Harker's plan to get hold of the Everly fortune was all too obvious. All he had to do was marry Nancy and...
I want to thank you all for supporting what we're doing here in our educational program to highlight some of the brilliant actors and writers and technicians of that era. And so we're going to continue to feature vintage radio plays from the 20th century and beyond and give you a little bit of the background behind them and how they came to be and who are the characters involved. The story behind the story, as they say. This is Mark Taylor-Canfield, and if you like what we're doing here, please like this video and also share it. And subscribe to our channel, MTC's Classic Radio Archives. Share it with your grandparents and your parents and your kids. This is a multi-generational phenomenon, radio theater. And we are here to highlight some of the most talented people in the 20th century who put this stuff together. So thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you next time. This is Mark Taylor-Canfield for MTC's Classic Radio Archive. Wishing you a pleasant evening, and tune in next time.